meeting to order here, regular meeting. It's March 25th, 2026. We do Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, can we have roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Kenneth Helinski,
Here.
Christian D'Antonio,
Here.
Linda DeGray,
Here.
John Petronell is here, Terrence Lynch, Frank Alamo is absent, Joseph Bewley,
Here.
Walter Crizel,
Here.
Bob Anderson,
Here.
and Laura Anderson is absent.
Okay, thank you. I neglected to do the fire evacuation announcement. Fire evacuation is out through the back door or down the hall and down the staircase to your left. Okay, minutes of preceding meetings. The last meeting was January 22nd, 2026.
So moved. Motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We accept the minutes. Are there any comments or changes on the minutes?
Mr. Chair, I did see I'm sorry, this is the aquifer. I was there,
Okay,
so
okay.
Yeah.
All right, so,
strike that.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Enforcement officer support, I don't think we have one. Any public communications or petitions? I don't see anybody in the audience, so. Oh, I do, thank you. I'm going to see Rob Anderson tonight as a regular member. Okay, no public communications. Continued public hearings, we don't have any. New public hearings, we don't have any. Old business, none. New business is XRA 3577 Town Farm Road. Step up, please. Thank you. This is an aquifer application for a renewal of an existing registration.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Donald Nunes, Director of Public Works, and I'm ultimately responsible for the transfer station. So,
Welcome.
thank you. Good to see you.
Okay, so can you just give us a little synopsis of what's going on here?
Sure. So for the background, this site is the Enfield Transfer Station at 77 Town Farm Road. The site was previously registered under XRA 2107 under the Town of Enfield. The registration is going to expire on May 27th, 2026, and the town is looking to renew the registration. Activities are to remain as the following. V, accumulation or storage of waste oil, antifreeze, or spent lead acid batteries. And Y, accumulation, storage, handling, recycling, disposal, reduction, processing, burning, transfer, or composting of solid waste. Activity V is no longer active on site, but the registration will remain in case of future operation. For compliance information, a site inspection was conducted where staff met with Donald Nunes, the Director of Public Works, Carl Johnson, Deputy Director of Capital Projects, and Kenneth Boo, I hope I said his name correctly. Boulette, thank you, the Assistant Director. The inspection found no violations. There are no waste chemicals kept on site. Any chemicals that are stored are labeled in containers within a larger storage container, clear of cracks and leaks. The storage containers that hold e-waste are also in good condition with no current leaks or damage. Damaged electronics is stored in larger containers individually as needed. Both cardboard dumpster and e-waste storage containers are stored on a concrete pad. Stormwater catch basins are cleared and they can be seen throughout the site. The site utilizes sheet flow for proper stormwater drainage. And when I asked them for the MMP, it was readily available upon request.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone on the commission have any questions for Mr. Nunez or Steve? Go ahead.
I just have one quick question. What is e-waste? Is that like lithium batteries?
It's TVs, it's all that
Okay.
kind of stuff like
All
that.
right,
So
just-
that's all from residents, is also from the town's production of it. So again, the schools or things like that.
I just, because we're on TV.
Yes.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? I have a question. How long are we renewing it for?
So the renewal is going to be for 5 years.
Okay.
Aquifer protection certificates are good for every 5 years, and this is just the renewal period.
Okay, all right. All right, I guess we can, we have the motion, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the aquifer registration renewal request under XRA number 3577 Town Farm Road, aquifer application for renewal of an existing registration, Donald P. T. Nunes applicant, Town of Enfield owner, map 71, lot 03, R88 zone, with the standard conditions of approval.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Could we have roll call, please?
Yes, Ken Helinski,
4.
Chris D'Antonio. 4. Linda DeGray,
4.
Joseph Muley,
4.
Terrence Lynch,
4.
Rob Anderson,
4.
and John Petronella is 4.
Okay. Vote is unanimous. Congratulations for getting your renewal.
There you go.
See you in 5 years.
Yeah, in 5 years. Okay, thank you very much. Let's see.
Motion to
Yeah,
adjourn.
looks like that's it.
Second.
Wait,
Oh,
I just
Well,
had,
Go ahead.
I just had a question for staff before we adjourn.
Yes.
Are we going to be receiving more, application renewals?
Yes, there are more that are going to be expiring this year. They have a little bit of time before they do expire. So
Okay.
there will be more later this year.
Okay, I was just wondering, because we did a lot 5 years ago, that's why I'm wondering.
Right. Yeah, the only reason why there wasn't any renewals last year is because there was a gap in registrations. And from what I can tell, that was during COVID. So it
Yeah.
seems like we're starting again from after the COVID
Yeah.
initial.
No, like I said, 5 years ago, we had a whole bunch, and it just seems like we've only had 2. So-
Yep. There's
Okay.
one that's expiring this summer, and then the majority of them, if I remember correctly, are expiring in October.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So we are going to have a meeting in April.
Yes, there's a meeting scheduled for April 23rd at this point, assuming we have,
Well, assuming we have
Something to review, yeah.
for April, correct?
okay,
Okay, thank you.
okay.
Now you can.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Again.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission to order. This is the meeting on March 25th, 2026. Pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, fire evacuation announcement is through the back door or out the hall to my left and left down the stairwell. Okay, can we have roll call, please?
Ken Helinski.
Here.
Chris D'Antonio.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
John Petronella is here. Terrence Lynch.
Here.
Frank Alamo is absent. Joseph Muley.
Here.
Walter Crizel.
Here.
Rob Anderson.
Here.
And Laura Anderson is absent.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to appoint both Walter Cruzel and Rob Anderson as regular members tonight.
I think you just need the
Oh, we
one.
need two. Isn't Frank out? Oh, that's right, she's an alternate.
He's an alternate.
Yep.
Okay, so you're the guy, Rob. It's your month.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. I'm leaving.
We need your votes.
Okay, town attorney report.
Minutes.
Oh, approval of minutes. Sorry.
Motion to approve the minutes of March 12th, 2026.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Yes.
Yes,
Linda.
on page 4, line 7, my name is misspelled. That's all.
Okay.
Page 4, line 7.
Yep. I counted the lines. I made it as easy as possible.
Okay. Does anyone else have any?
Mr. Chair, having watched the meeting, I will be voting on this.
Okay, very good. Okay. Any more additions or questions about the minutes? Okay, hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? Okay. Town attorney report? I don't think there is any, correct?
Sorry, I'm sorry, just got Walter's in, no, Walter isn't in, okay. But you raised
All right,
your
we
hand,
only
that's why I
needed
was-
one because
Yeah.
Laura's an alternate.
Right, yeah, so, all right, so it was 601 then, right? Who, John abstained? No.
Oh, he's in. He's in because he watched the meeting on.
Oh, he watched the meeting, I
watched the
heard
meeting, yep.
differently, okay,
Yep.
so it's 7-0, which is what I wrote originally,
Okay,
okay.
there you go. See, you had it right the first time. Okay, so I assume we don't have a town attorney report tonight?
No,
Okay. Zoning enforcement officers report?
not this evening,
Okay, public participation, there's no one here, so there won't be any public
not
participation.
this evening.
Bond releases, none. Continued public hearing, Harris Street, they're not ready yet, so we won't be hearing that tonight.
So the good news is I got new architectural plans, so I believe that we could probably have this on for the next meeting.
Okay, sounds good. New public hearings, none. Old business, First Avenue, I believe they're not ready as well.
That is correct. They're not ready yet.
Okay. All right, new business. We did receive in our packet the memorandum from Lori concerning 4 separate items on the regulations. So we'd like to have a discussion on that tonight. And we're going to start with section 4.80, the Lake Overlay District, clarification of location for accessory structures. So Lori, would you just like to summarize?
Yeah, first, I just want to say I'm not looking or expecting any final conclusions this evening. We just want to get your feel for where you want to go, whether you want us to pursue these things or not pursue them or fix them, and how to. Okay, so I'm not looking for any final definitive solution tonight. So section 4.80. So these are actually things that we have issues with more often than not. So this is the Lake Overlay District and clarification of location for accessory structures. So if you go to the first page there, under B, section 4.80B, and then there's a two-liner at the bottom of that. It says, in addition, the mean high water mark of the lake varies. The front yard of the properties is defined as the lakeside elsewhere in these regulations. No, it is not. That is nowhere to find. So that's the first thing. And I'm hoping, Linda, you may have been here when this all happened, but I don't know. I'm not putting you on the spot.
I'm
So-
old, but I'm not that old.
Okay.
This has been in effect for decades, so.
Okay, and I was not really sure exactly when this came into effect, but I
Long
know it
time
was
ago.
after
I
the 90s.
thought it was around 2017, but it must have been before that.
Before that,
It was definitely before that, but after, I was here in the 90s, and I don't remember it
I don't-
happening then, so.
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
So, then under 3.30.7, we talk about accessory buildings, and it says that you can have accessory buildings under certain circumstances, except for the Lakefront Overlay District. So, basically, it's talking about accessory buildings, but it can't be the way it's written there. So then we go over to the next page, and under 3.30.7
Point A.
A.78, rather, VIII. On lots with within a lakefront overlay district zone, accessory buildings may be placed forward of the line established by the rear of the principal building on the lot. So that's where I think there's some misinterpretations, because if you look at the map, so
Yep.
if, on the next page, I just quickly drew a map, and we've got a little lot, and on the top of the page is the lake, which is the front yard, and the roadway on the bottom, which is the rear yard. So the rear of the house is the one towards the roadway. And the question is what is the front? So I've got to go back to it. I wouldn't get the wording right. May be placed forward of the line established by the rear of the principal building. Is forward towards the road or forward towards the lake?
I'm going to guess, and
That's the problem
because,
right there, that word.
well, and the problem with these houses is they were originally just cottages made into homes.
Correct.
And so some of these lots, there's a cottage close to the lake and then a cottage kind of diagonal behind it. So I believe they were going to allow, in some instances, depending on the lot, to allow an accessory building behind the front line of the house, the front line being toward the lake. The lake is the lake. They always wanted, that's their front yard. They want that. That's their job. That they came in, they said, nope, front yard is our lake. We want it all toward the road. So I believe that was my understanding, is anything behind that front line, as long as it was within that setback, 10 feet away from the property line. Because some of these lots are so small and narrow.
Okay. So I think the way you're interpreting may be what I've been hearing. However, it's behind the rear, it's more forward of the rear line of the house.
Yeah, my interpretation is that of the, the starred item for the lake district is that the rear of the house is the road side.
Right.
So that anywhere between the rear and 20 feet from the lake, you can put an accessory structure as long as you meet the 10-foot. So whether that makes sense or not, that's the way I interpret it. And I think that's the way it reads.
I've read it that way as well.
Okay,
However, other staff have read it the opposite way.
okay. Well, what was their premise for that, though? Were they thinking the rear is the rear of the house?
So I think where the question comes from is really just the word placed forward of the line, in which it's up to interpretation of which direction is forward. Is forward towards the lake or is forward towards the roadway? Because if we're saying in between the house and the roadway is actually the rear yard, and between the house and the lake is the front yard, there could be an argument that the lake side is forward. So we were thinking maybe explore some wording variants, some vocabulary variants to say maybe instead of forward of the house, say something along the lines of in between the house and the roadway, to just make it as
Right.
clear as possible.
And I think that after speaking with Rick and some other people in Enfield, I think that the interpretation was that they switched the front and the rear so that you would have the accessory apartments in the rear, or accessory structures in the rear, which would be next to the road and not between the house and the lake.
Right, because they want to put their garages, they want to put it closer to the road, not to the lake.
Right. So I think what the intent was to keep that lakefront area clear of structures.
Right.
Yeah, I would think so, yeah.
So, but that's not, it, like, I mean, we just had two interpretations that were completely
Yeah, right.
opposite.
Yeah, right.
So that's a problem.
Yeah.
So that's what's
Okay.
happening. And I have somebody that really wants to put a pool between the house and the lakefront. And it's like, I'm not sure you could do that. She goes, of course I can. So,
Well,
No.
No,
doesn't make sense. that-
I think we gotta look at this thing, like, if they want the front to be the lake, it's the front. We don't allow a pool in the front yard
exactly.
of any other zone.
No.
So why should we allow a pool in the front yard of this zone? But just to keep it into perspective and consistent, if that's what they wanted the front yards to be,
yeah,
that's the way it is.
Yep.
You know, and that,
Makes sense.
they wanted their front yard to be the lake,
So,
right.
so it's kind of nice and,
have we talked to the lake associations? Do we know
I
what they
wanted
want?
to see if somebody here remembered something or just
Yeah.
knew it. That's definitely something that I'm going to do, again, as follow-up. But I think we all may be having the same interpretation now. They made the front because the front doesn't allow accessory structures.
Yeah.
right.
But there is a question as to more forward of the line established by the rear of the principal building. So to me, that means that you may only have accessory structures from that rear to the roadway, not along the side of the house.
Okay, it doesn't say that, though.
I know that.
But I don't,
So
it depends on
what
what.
we want to do is fix this so it's clear to anybody that reads it.
Right.
But we
Yeah.
need the interpretation first.
Right, but I believe it was the lake associations that wanted the front of the properties to be on the lake.
Yep.
And they're the ones who said, no, we don't want to see all these buildings when you're in your boat fishing or whatever, or paddling,
Or a pool.
or pool. Hell, we had a house on North Street, had a pool in their front yard. Had to be taken down, but,
That may have been a violation.
yeah.
Yeah, go
Chair, I
go
got a
ahead, John.
question for-
Yeah,
for staff.
go ahead, John.
Is there an established rear yard setback in the Lake Overlay District?
20 feet, I think. So I think it actually says that in that section.
So that'd be from the
It
roadway
says,
to the
it shall be located at least 20 feet from the front property line. And see, that's where you start getting confused. So to me, the front property line is the lake.
So that word should be rear.
Yes. See, this is what's happening. It's
Right.
like, it just is not
Okay.
clear.
Well, yeah, it seems
Why
to.
don't we not say
yeah,
front and rear and say shore side and roadside?
I agree with that. It's just, this is, and that's what I was saying, it's like, we could have just,
Right,
Put
Right.
lakeside in parentheses.
yeah, we could have just said accessory structures are not permitted between the lake and the house.
yep, there you go.
Would have been clear as bell.
Yep,
Yep,
So I totally see where you're going, Rob. So, I mean, maybe that's the solution, that we do that, but I wanted you to understand, we grapple with this like so many times a year. And it's just like, it just is not written correctly.
Yep.
So, but I think everybody agrees at this point then. I think there's a consensus that there should be no accessory structures between the house and the lake,
Right.
regardless of whether we call it Frederick or Ethel. Right?
Right.
So, okay, cool. Yay. Moving on.
All right, moving on. We got
Look at,
the-
we're a quarter way done.
Out of
Okay, the
here?
issue of non-enclosed decks considered part of building coverage.
Right. So, if you look at number 1, accessory building is a building or use in addition to the principal building or use which is clearly subordinate to and customarily incidental to and located upon the same lot as the principal building or use. Structures which provide access to the principal building, including but not limited to decks, landings, porches, etc., are considered part of the principal structure and shall not be considered accessory structures. So therefore, that means that they are counted as coverage of the building. So, and then you go down to 6, and it talks about structure and anything on the ground and attached to the ground as a structure, and that's what we have to count for coverage. And then if you go up to 2, building area, the ground area enclosed by the walls of a building together with the walls of all covered porches and other roofed portions. Now, that would be pretty much assumed that that would be impervious coverage if there's a roof. So what I'd like to suggest is that under number 1, instead of structures which provide access to the principal building, including but not limited to decks, landings, and porches, I would just like to add impervious decks, landings, and porches to that. So in other words, like a porch could be a concrete slab. That is impervious. But a deck is usually wood and is pervious. The water can still go through it. So why are we counting that as coverage, building coverage?
If it's a deck that's roofed.
This doesn't include roofing. That's the problem. A covered deck and porch, that makes sense. Covered
Yeah.
means there's a roof. So water is not going onto it and going through it. But here they're saying that decks, landings, and porches are not considered accessory structures, but part of the principal structure. So therefore, we've had to count them as the building coverage.
So is this a problem because it then violates the building coverage required?
It gives them less advantage to add more things because, for instance, we have a house that is U-shaped, and in between those side wings is a deck. Because of this number 1, we have to count the deck, even though it's pervious. Water goes through it. We still have to count that as coverage for the maximum coverage, which is like 25%.
Didn't we have this same discussion last year when we were talking about pools and if
We-
we're counting pools and
We did?
we decided, I seem to remember deciding that if it didn't have a roof on it, it doesn't count.
Yeah. And you know what, you're right. We did
and-
have a little bit of conversation. I wasn't sure if we actually
Right.
really talked about the decks and landings.
Yeah,
But we did decide to add in-ground pools as not counted in coverage.
Right, because we weren't counting above-ground pools, and
Right.
why are we counting in-ground
Right.
Right,
pools?
right.
And that's why
Because-
under 3, I actually added and
Right.
in-ground pools.
If I remember correctly, I forgot to look back at my notes in my book, but I'm pretty sure we decided that if it doesn't have a roof on it, it doesn't count as lot coverage.
I think you're right.
But what if it's a patio and it's a concrete patio? That
Roof,
does not.
we had that discussion too, there's
Yeah.
no roof on it. I
Yep.
mean,
So-
because a lot of people use patios, they're not usually slabs, they're usually pavers or something like that, so water will go through it. But
Depends on how
I
it's
think
installed,
that,
but yeah.
if I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I pretty much remember we had a very lengthy
yeah.
discussion about that.
Yep.
And you were very happy that the pool thing got
Yeah.
squared away.
Yes, I
We
was.
decided that if it doesn't have a roof on it, it
No
doesn't
roof,
count
not
as
in
lot
coverage.
coverage.
Yep, okay. So I think the quick way of fixing this is just to say impervious decks, landings, porches, et cetera, are considered as principal structure. So, but if it lets water through, then we don't count it.
So so roofs would be counted then
Yeah.
as impervious?
As impervious.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
You know, sometimes you have like I don't know, is it called a pergola or
Yeah.
just some
Well,
wood
yeah.
slats
Open,
overhead?
yeah.
That's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a roof. Okay.
I mean,
So
I-
we're going to try to fix this. Of course, you'll see it again.
All right, Chris-
I
Christian,
mean, I'm in agreement with that, but I mean, not to be difficult, but I don't really see the conflict that you're saying though, because we're differentiating the structure is not necessarily the building. You're saying
So-
it's part of the primary structure, but the structure is just something that's built up off the ground.
Well, if I can also add on to that, so it's not only with decks and porches that are on the principal structure. We've also had to count decks that are attached to pools because of this same kind of
That's true.
coverage.
But you're saying they're just not. They're part of the principal structure, but a structure is not necessarily.
So
Well, a structure,
And a
in
structure
our-
does not count towards the building area. That's what I don't understand why you're pointing to a building area.
Well, I will point out that in our regulations under the definitions, a structure is defined as anything that has location on the ground.
Right.
And so that would still fall under the coverage requirement.
right. So
But the
what
coverage requirement is specifically aggregate building area of all buildings. But a structure is not necessarily a building. A building's a structure, but a structure is not a building.
that can be,
Yeah.
but
But coverage
this-
is
but
specifically
number
talking
one
about
is
building
talking
area.
about structures which provide access to the principal building, but not including but not limited to decks, landings, porches, etc., are considered part of the principal structure.
Structure, yeah.
Okay,
But-
and
but
if you go
there's
down
a-
to
Yeah.
if you go down to 6, it says structure, anything constructed or erected which requires location on the ground or attached to something having location on the ground, including signs,
Mm-hmm.
billboards, and fences or walls, but not including fences or walls. So, basically, the coverage is the structure or the building.
But they're not the same thing, though.
I think
If the building is the walls, but a structure does not necessarily have to have walls.
But it would still be counted as coverage if it was impervious.
But building area says the ground area enclosed by the walls of a building together and other roofed portions. I mean, I don't think it hurts to clarify, but I don't think it's in conflict as it is today. I think
Well, it's been interpreted in conflict for
it's been a
long
I
time.
could imagine it being
Yeah,
interpreted. I think the principal structure thing is the thing that's the, because it's like what is the principal structure used for? The principal structure is just used to say what's not an accessory.
Okay, so I guess what we need to clarify is whether we're including impervious decks, landings, porches in structures and/or buildings. Because I see accessory buildings or uses is the title of that original. Sorry,
Lori,
I'm
correct me
trying
if
to
I'm
look up
wrong,
structure
but-
versus building.
The building department looks at a deck permit. If you can attach your deck
Yeah.
to the home, to the structure, and it becomes part of the home. You can also build it independently and leave it, a half-inch away and not attached to the home.
Right.
Which keeps it isolated. And
Yeah.
and that is two different meanings to the building department,
Yeah, we just-
how they view it.
Well, I think that then it would
So-
be an accessory structure.
Okay.
Right.
Can I read
But not a
the
building.
definition of building?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
In our regulations?
Yeah.
Building, any structure having a roof or intended for shelter, housing, or enclosure of persons, animals, or materials. Any other structure more than 8 feet in height shall be considered a building, including a solid fence or wall, but excluding a public utility pole or flagpole. So they're sort of by definitions, they're sort of interchangeable, but this one section, number 1 at the top of this page, talks about decks, landings, porches being considered as part of that principal structure, which doesn't make sense because they're pervious. So we're just wanting to clarify that impervious decks, landings, porches would be part of the structure and overall coverage.
So pervious would be the criteria.
Yeah, the yeah. So if it's impervious, if it's an impervious wooden deck, why would we count that as, as the coverage?
I agree.
Yeah.
And it doesn't hurt to clarify. I don't read it as being in conflict today, but
Okay.
by all means, I think that it's worth clarifying.
You want to work on it, go for it. Like,
No.
Good, Walter.
It's got a roof,
Add
gets
impervious.
counted as coverage, no roof.
Right.
Back
Well,
to,
but again,
Pretty,
you know,
pretty, that's
yeah,
pretty much what that building thing
Yep.
says.
yeah.
Right. That's
Okay,
that's
Walter had a
basically what it
comment.
but back to his point, so patios made with pavers are impervious, but patio made with concrete is pervious,
No, just the opposite.
or what, yeah.
Yeah, just the opposite.
So should we clarify that somehow, that concrete patios are, I don't know.
So if it's pervious, that means water can go
Yes, so
through. It
that's-
should not be
so that's
counted as
pavers.
the building coverage.
Impervious is
Impervious,
is a
right.
concrete slab as a patio.
Yeah, yeah, right. I think that that's what the intent was, but it just didn't get
Right.
clarified as well as it should have.
Yeah.
So this has come up a number of times.
Well, it needs clarification then, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's clarify.
I have another question.
Yep.
Structures which provide access to the principal building.
So I think that that might be sheds, or not sheds, decks or stairways, something like that. So if it's a wooden stairway, it would be it would be pervious. If it was a concrete stairway, that would be impervious.
But it could have a small lean-to roof over it.
Yeah, or it might
which
have a lean-to. Yep,
falls
exactly.
into, you know,
Yep,
Changes it. If you put a roof
Right.
over it,
yep.
it changes the whole
The
thing.
roof and perviousness are key.
Yep.
Are we good with that?
Okay, so let me just give you my scenario,
Okay.
okay? I have two decks. I have a deck connected to the house. It goes across to the back door. And then I have a deck going to the pool. You step up to go down to the pool, okay? So several years ago, we enclosed the lower deck. We put a roof on it, made it into a sunroom. And then we had the roof come over the back door a little bit, so there'd be a little coverage when you came out. All right, so, but that part is all decking. And the sunroom is built on the deck, okay? So I'm assuming that the deck part would be pervious and the pool deck would be pervious. It would not count. Is that true or not?
You put a roof over it, so that just
Only
stops
part
it.
way, though.
So then part would,
No, the sunroom part is here, and then the back door deck comes out and goes to the pool deck, which is not covered,
Right.
okay?
So the sunroom has a roof over it,
Yes.
right.
so that's impervious now.
Yeah, that's fine.
So that's,
What I'm asking is
Adds to
is the
your lot
rest of it counted as pervious? Where it doesn't have that?
No.
Okay.
Right,
Okay.
because it's decking with
Got it.
air between them,
Okay.
between the.
Yeah, I didn't know if
sides,
you were
right?
considering that because it's all connected, you know?
Nope.
So based on this based on this wording, it's been interpreted that all of that would have been included.
Okay, gotcha.
So that's why we're trying to
Yeah, okay.
clarify the
No, it makes
difference.
sense,
It's- That's actually a perfect example.
Yeah,
So, and then, quite honestly, decking around the pool is very often concrete. So,
well, it's an above-ground pool, so.
And it's also it also lets water through.
well, not if it's concrete.
If it's concrete, it has drains.
That's true. Well, that can be true. I'm not sure if it's always true, but that can be
If
true, yeah.
there's a pool, there's going to be drains.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just to play devil's advocate with that, there's also drains attached to a house when you build the house with the leaders. So,
Like a footing drain.
yeah, like a footing drain. But we still obviously count the house as coverage. Right. So, again, just playing devil's advocate here, that little surface of the deck on the pool is still impervious. Yeah, that's the right one. It's still impervious, even though you have the drains there. So I would make the argument that it still counts as coverage, but That depends on what you guys are
It
thinking.
seems this is one of those things where there's way, way, way too many words, and it needs to be a tenth of the words that it has now,
Yeah,
and just very simple and straightforward.
Less is more.
yep.
Sounds good to me. Okay, any other comments on item 2 here? Okay, next one is item 3, cellars and foundations, consideration of elimination of section 410-2.
Oh, there's 3.
I thought we already decided on that.
Yeah.
We had a very lengthy, we decided that it was up to the, part of the building department and up to
Yes,
the person
yes, we
building
did.
the house.
Correct.
Right.
What,
And
So it's out of our,
Let this
go ahead, I'm sorry.
You're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
So at the bottom here, I just want to make sure that this is what you would like to see as a final for houses on slab. So the bottom of the wording is manufactured homes, and it just says manufactured homes. May be built with slab-type construction. 100% of the floor area shall include a frost wall or otherwise meet frost protection providing of the state building code. Finished floor must sit at least 28 inches above grade. So we would have to take out manufactured home, just say homes that are level with the ground or slab houses or whatever terminology we use, and then have that as the finishing. And that's what I just want to make sure that you are comfortable with if we move forward to get this adopted.
just,
Right, that was part of that
Right.
discussion we had.
but then we had that issue over on Middle Road where, with the fancy dancy screwed in
piles, right?
pylons.
Helical
So
pylons, yeah.
we need to discuss that, if that's
Yeah.
something
But-
new in the building code. The builders are saying, the building department said, yeah, okay, fine.
Yeah.
So what do we, as the commission, feel about? I think that's a bigger,
Could I just comment on that,
Sure.
Mr. Chair? So it shouldn't matter to us whether it's on helical pilings, on some sort of stanchions, or, just the slab. That is a building department issue, and that's why we're trying to take this out of our zoning regs, because as long as they're okay with it, it should be fine.
Aesthetics is what we're,
Right.
right.
Pardon?
You're looking at the aesthetics.
aesthetics.
You're looking at the aesthetics.
That's our.
Right, so I don't think that we should get too involved or unnerved over whether it's pilings or
Right.
a slab. I think
not
that
our
it's
thing.
fair
Yep.
to say that you would like to see, at least this 28 inches above ground of dirt up against the foundation and things of that nature. So I just wanted to kind of get a feel from you is that satisfactory for you? Or
Well,
are there other things that you'd
Several
like to
people
consider?
in town are concerned about the cost savings not being passed on to the customers who are buying the house.
Not our jurisdiction.
That's really
Oh, I
not.
understand that, I'm
us.
just saying, be
But
prepared.
it certainly
because we're
opens
gonna
it
have-
up for more
we're gonna
cost
have people
savings
coming
if they
forward
can.
to mention that, okay?
Yeah.
And we should, we should,
The only other
aware.
thing to consider with that 28 inches above, if they're on helical piles, do we need to put in something that blocks out that elevation? Meaning,
I don't wanna
and
see
screens
dirt
it. It
just
just
pushed
can't be
there.
open,
right.
where it looks like it's built on stilts and, you can look right underneath it.
Right.
Like a cottage, if you will, But again, aesthetics, I think the point is we're trying to make these houses look like the rest of the town in New England type of, character. And blend in,
Right, I
with
don't
the
want
rest of
to,
the
yeah,
town.
I don't want to see pylons and then just dirt shoved up there and go, oh, well, look, we finished that. That,
Well, I think the one on Middle Road came out
well,
pretty
Yeah,
well.
they used that
looks good.
It's
fake
really
fake
pretty.
We were there
stone
at the same
facade
time,
there,
Joe,
yeah.
we-
I mean, the outside of the house looks pretty nice. but
Yeah, it does.
The inside's a whole different story.
Did that ever sell?
So maybe we could find some wording that just describes that there's got to be some sort of finished wall or
Yeah. Yeah, from
I don't know
grade
what
to,
facade
to the structure.
from
to
the structure
structure.
down to the
Yeah.
ground.
right.
Yeah.
Not just dirt shoved up against it and,
Right, you wouldn't want to do that anyway because the house would rot. So-
You'd be surprised people
Well,
do
I know
that,
what people
so.
do, but, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
overall with this
We'll
building.
do a little more digging.
Yeah.
Haha. Or not digging.
But not
We'll do
piling
a
up
little bit more
dirt.
research and try to come up with something that might be a little bit better for you, to make you all a little bit more comfortable with it.
Okay.
Okay?
And then the,
All right.
number 4 is the consideration of allowing the LED changeable messaging boards.
Yeah, so I've had a number of requests from from the municipality, for instance, putting an LED changeable board in the public sign that we have in the corner over here.
Yep.
Fire departments have been interested in it, and schools, et cetera. We actually don't have LED signs permitted in this town at this point, because I think these sign regs are from like the 1970s. Changeable times, you know. So I dealt with this when I was in East Windsor, and I kind of gave you a quick rundown of the things that you need to consider when you're doing this. Brightness, you don't want flashing things, it distracts people from driving. You use matte finishes, don't have pure white backgrounds because it becomes very bright. Having the screen change from one to another, it can't be like instantaneous, it should be gradual. There's a lot of things to look at when you're actually regulating these. The other thing that I need to bring up is that there is a large case law on zoning regulations for signage, and some of it is that if you allow it in one place, you have to allow it in others. So I'm not sure if we could just keep this to municipal and, emergency service stations or anything like that. But what I want to know is if you're even open to considering it. The schools are interested, the fire department, the town is interested.
Are these permanent?
It would be permanent signs, so, probably, 24 by 36 or maybe something like this.
You mean like the
That's-
one that's at JFK?
I was gonna say, didn't we approve JFK?
I'm not
just a
sure if
couple
they
of
ever
years
got
ago?
any permission for that.
I think
they
we
did.
did.
Oh, we
I
did.
think we did approve that.
yeah.
Yeah.
We
It was
definitely-
approved.
Who approved
I
it?
remember talking about that.
We definitely
approved
talked
it?
about the digital sign that's under the regular sign, right? Is that
Yep.
how it is?
And that's at JFK?
That came
think so.
before us a few months back.
Yeah.
I remember that.
One that is not that, they just said for state
Well, that's state, and they can
Yeah.
do what they want. I have an issue when they scroll, because I have been sitting at a stoplight, and people are trying to catch whatever's scrolling on the sign, or changing. So if it's just
Exactly.
lit, just stationary lit, not changing or anything like that, I don't have a problem with it. But where people are sitting there trying to catch whatever it is they're saying it's distracting.
Yeah, scrolling is distracting. So a lot of
Vegas.
the methods of changing the screen are to like have it fade out and then and something fade
Even
in.
that, it can be.
Yeah,
Like
there's a lot of things that you can regulate within them.
like the billboards in Hartford that are changing all the time. That's
Some
distracting.
of those are dangerous. The ones
Yeah.
I've seen lately.
East Windsor High School has one on Route 5.
Right.
And it's pretty much just a list of what's going on that week and the
And that's
date.
it. And it stays that way
yeah,
for the week.
And the
Yeah.
temperature.
But
That's
this,
pretty much
they,
it. Yeah.
they want, they want. So we do have time and
We
date
approved that.
ones in here, but they're not LED. They're the little light bulb things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as far as the LED sign at JFK, that was approved, and the intention when it was or installed was so they could put messages up, and they
Yeah.
could change it and stuff like that. They don't do that. It always says the same thing, but the problem that I see with the sign at JFK is it's very low. So when you have a night that's very hazy, like there's like a mist in the air, and that sign is bright, it's bright at the same level that you're at, and it makes it difficult to see. It's different than when the sign's 10 feet in the air, 15 feet in the air. It doesn't affect your visibility when it's in poor conditions like that.
Yeah, that's a great observation.
So it
and-
affects
and,
your
you know,
visibility on the
These are things that
road
we
when
need
you're
to
driving.
consider.
Yeah.
But,
These signs impact with the sign regulations as it stands, meaning you've got a facility that has signage already, it meets the sign requirements, and if you're gonna put an LED sign, it may exceed the requirements of the sign ordinance. So that has to be considered, correct?
yeah, the point of this is that we don't actually allow them. I'm not sure, I wasn't involved with JFK, I don't know how that sign came to be, and it is what it is.
And this could go beyond, as you say, municipalities, but if a facility now can have so many square feet of sign based upon frontage and building length and
Yep.
all of this stuff. Let's say a facility meets it and it was on borderline, now they wanna put up an LED sign, well, you can't because you don't have any room in it, according to the zoning, to add on square footage of signage.
Well, and that's something that we would have to consider, and again, it's gonna sort of make a difference as to whether it's the town hall, fire stations, the police station, schools, or if we will entertain allowing them for other uses. So they also, you know, they want public notification in case there's an emergency, you know, here's the warming center, you know, be aware, we're having 16 feet of snow tomorrow.
Parking ban.
Parking ban, yeah. So,
As it pertains to schools and municipalities. What's your thought on Enfield High School?
so I really don't have any thoughts at this point as to like locations or what they're doing. The point is that there's been interest in having these available. So, I mean, what is the intent of your question, I guess?
They don't really have frontage other than the road. It's a historic district. I just see a lot of
Yeah.
feedback on even applying to do something.
Right, and of course, we would have to consider that. Now, I don't know whether they would want it internally, just for the people that are going to the school or going to be at the school. I don't know. I'm not sure if they're interested in even having one, but I do know that some schools have inquired.
Okay, Walter? it's on that.
Yeah, so the one at the high school, I was part of having it turned so you could see it, because it was, it was parallel with the road. When it got hit by a tree, I said, if we're gonna put a new sign up, let's turn it. So I was part of that application with the historic district to get that turned. But again, we don't want, that's a historic thing. I don't think that would be a historic decision if they want LED there. But I want to bring up is the package store that the car went through it. Right after they opened, they bought this open sign that literally flashes bright open. I mean, what's the regulations on that?
No
Pretty
flashing
bright,
signs.
It is
Yeah,
pretty
that
bright,
thing, that thing is.
Right
that-
here, in
yeah,
our
that-
regulations, no flashing
That thing
signs.
is, when they put it up on the plywood that was, blocking the crash site there, that thing was annoying, so.
That was temporary, I hope.
No, he still got it up.
It's
believe
still
it.
there, it's still there.
He put windows, and now he put it right above the window. It's still there.
So it's bright and flashing?
Yeah, it's bright and flashing, it says
I don't know
open.
if he,
Is it inside the building?
no, it's outside, but
outside.
he may have calmed down the flashing part last time. I know it was flashing when
haven't
it was a
noticed.
plywood
So
wall.
it's-
haven't
So
noticed.
there's a whole section on illumination
Right.
in our
Says
regulations.
no flashing,
so-
rotating, or intermittent illumination shall be permitted.
It may be temporary too, because he hasn't finished deciding yet. on
Yeah,
any of that
true.
stuff.
Mm.
So
it may
I
be
think he's
temporary.
just trying to notify people on, hey, I'm still open.
Yeah.
But I don't know that.
Anyway,
Sure.
okay, just point of interest.
Yeah, the other thing we could do is we could limit the amount of scrolling, right? I mean, there's one here that says
Absolutely,
2 to
that's-
10 seconds. I mean,
Yep.
you could say it,
How are you gonna
What I gave you is just a sample
enforce
of
that? I mean-
books of how to regulate these.
yeah, I know it'd be tough to enforce, I suppose, but
I would just go with what we've got. It's no rotating or intermittent illumination.
Yeah, but the new criteria,
But
were-
instead of saying rotation, flashing or scrolling.
So, where I work, we have a sign that's 8 feet wide, 5 feet high, 8 feet wide, 5 feet high, that's an LED sign on both sides. And it displays the time and it displays the temperature. It just displays one color. It's not bright enough where it affects anything, but it's also 8 feet off the ground and probably 20 feet over the roadway. But that does change
He did say that.
time, temperature, every,
Well, yeah, that,
10
but we
seconds.
also allow that in our regulations where it says, except signs indicating time and/or temperature. So,
Right.
by means of intermittent lighting. But if we don't do, if we say no flashing, no rotation, no scrolling, and of course, the time and the temperature always change, but it's not gonna be that, oh, what are they telling me I gotta do? It's not waiting for it to
Right.
scroll by.
having one thing
Right.
that's 3 or 4 digits for 5 seconds and then change to something else is way different than.
Right, then the time and
message.
temperature, right.
if I recall, when we approved the JFK sign, they said they were also going to use it to put up like events. So they would put up,
Right.
you know, soccer games, such and such time, something
Right.
like, but they would be fixed. And then, but they would change.
Right.
And
so
I guess they're not
it's-
doing that now. They're not
It's
really doing that.
informational, and you can't, and there's lots of ways it can
Yeah.
change. It
So
can
maybe
change,
we
go,
eliminate the flashing.
or it could go very, very slowly, or it could just, fade
Yeah.
in, fade out. There are books on how to regulate LED signs
Okay.
because they have got so much opportunity to do
They
so
could-
many things.
They could put this meeting on the sign,
Yeah,
Yeah,
like literally
Sure.
broadcast the meeting on the sign.
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And you probably don't want that.
No.
So there are rules that we would have to
Okay,
entertain.
so that's fine. Yeah.
So I guess my question is I like I said, I've had a couple people, including people from the town hall, asking about doing this. Is this something that you would consider entertaining? Because I don't want to spend hours and hours trying to find good regulations if you don't even want these.
I would think we would consider it if we can control it. Like,
Yeah.
we already said, like, no flashing, you know.
Yeah,
So if we could-
limiting
Put Steve on it.
animations and.
You know, I've been put on plenty of other things, so I don't mind.
What do you do when you have every single business on the road that does that sign?
That's the
I
problem.
think what you're talking about is, if we want them, do we want to segregate who gets them?
Well, that's the
One of
other
your
thing,
comments-
That's where I,
Yep.
So now you're gonna
Town
be,
building.
now you're gonna show preferential treatment to one business and not
That's-
the other.
that's one thing I have to investigate.
Town buildings and town,
You could limit it to municipal buildings.
If possible, that would.
I don't think we could, because didn't the Supreme Court say, like, we didn't allow those flags, and they said, no, it's their prerogative, and they can
That-
do that? So if we do this, we're gonna have to do it for every business that wants it, whether it's a
That's why I've got to
building,
investigate
because
what the
the
sign.
Supreme Court says they have a right to put their sign up, because it used to be you could only have 4 colors on a sign, and the company that had more than 4 colors on their sign went to court, and they said, no, you can have as many colors as you want on the sign. This was quite a big deal. So, because they had 5 colors.
I think it's a slippery slope.
It's a very slippery slope if we do this. And I can understand the town wanting an LED sign here on the corner, because they do put up their events. And it'd be easier to just, type it into a computer and let the computer do that,
Yeah.
than somebody going out there and changing that sign every whatever. But
So what I'd like to do is do a cursory investigation, check the case law on the signage. I know Bloomfield has one right in the center of their town. It's pretty big. And it's obviously on their property, but I have never seen any others around town.
Right.
But I don't drive through there that often. But, maybe I could call there, see what they did to get that, things like that.
So just a thought, though, how do we allow the gas station signs that have the LED numbers on them? They're not flashing.
They don't change.
They don't change.
Well, they've been
And I
changing
think
lately
they're-
because of the
I'm-
price of gas.
They're just,
Anyway,
the only
kinda
thing
like
that
a
changes is the
temperature and
price, which
time.
is always going up.
yeah,
Just
okay.
saying.
Well, it should
For
come
now.
back down, I hope, anyway. But, yeah, I'm just saying, they're LED lights, right? So have we already approved LED signs, right?
I
I don't know.
I'm just saying that it's not discussed in our sign
Signs that
regulations.
use
sign
LEDs and LED
illuminations
signs aren't
under
exactly
F.
the same thing.
Okay,
So-
so
What was that,
sign
Rob?
illumination.
Signs that use LEDs and LED display signs aren't
Yeah.
exactly the same thing.
Right.
I think
Okay.
LED lighting is different than LED changeable signs.
Okay,
Because we do allow sign illumination, and as long as it doesn't,
Yeah.
It's an information board.
Yeah. That's what it
turns
is.
into an LED information board.
Yeah.
Public use, maybe you can get around it that way, I don't know.
Well, my sale of my company might be public use, right? I don't know. So,
That-
like I said, the sign regulations are kind of just about every planner has an issue with sign regulations. And now that there's been some very heavy case law on it, I just want to start the investigation
okay, yep.
and see
Sounds
where we
good.
could go without spending too much time. But if you were just dead set against it, I wasn't going to bother.
I mean,
So-
maybe also potential separation distances, if that's a possibility as well.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And for what it's worth, I was curious. So I did dig up the master packet to see if there was anything in it from the JFK. So if it's 9/8/22,
I'm sorry?
the JFK sign we approved was 9/8/22.
9/8/22?
Yeah, it was Matt Davis, which is why probably Lori you don't recognize it. But yeah, it doesn't look like we had any site-specific conditions on it.
And
For
what-
what it's worth, and they did say roughly half of the sign fascia will include an electronic messaging board. So that was up front, but we didn't put anything specific as far as no scrolling or animations or anything.
And what is the file number on that one? Just so I can.
the file number that was XSP 3045.
Matt Davis did that?
XSP34. Okay. Thank you. Just so it's easier for us to dig it up in
Yeah,
our
yeah,
files
yeah,
later.
right.
That's all.
That'll
Okay,
be helpful.
do you have what you need, Lori, then? I think?
Can
I have
go-
what I
can
was
go
looking
back-
for.
Can I go back to what we were talking about before with basements?
Sure.
Where do the oil tanks go if we get rid of the basements?
outside.
I'm sorry, what?
If we get rid of the basements, then we have the oil tanks that are going to be outside.
I don't think
just
they're allowed to be
oil
outside.
I would imagine if it was oil, they'd probably put it in the garage. This one on Middle Road is propane, I believe, so they have
Yeah.
a propane tank in the
Yeah,
backyard, but.
yeah.
But they have, like, two
Where-
or three
where have they been
wall
putting them
oil
thus
tanks
far?
that go outside. You've been to Mary Ann's house, go in the back of her house. She's got an outside oil tank. And it's like, it almost looks like a shed.
They're not allowed to be
It's so
buried.
enclosed.
That's what it
Is it
is.
considered a shed?
No, it's an oil tank. She doesn't have a basement.
The town hall with their gas tanks, it's like a concrete
Right.
box.
And it's under a roof, so it doesn't get water in it, right?
Well, it's kind of got a roof on
Because
it.
it's all enclosed.
It's all enclosed. It's not like your oil tank in your basement, it's kind of enclosed inside a metal container on a cement pad.
The ones off of Weymouth Road, slab-on-grade homes there in that development. You drive through there, you'll see a lot of oil tanks.
Yeah.
On the sides of the house, it's just right in the open. You know, there's gotta be some sort of screening that's gotta be
Yeah.
done
Right.
for that.
Yeah, I think that is part of our regulation, screening of outside oil tanks. I'm pretty
it?
confident. Yeah, definitely seen it before.
But they're not like your oil tank in your basement.
So they have oil in them?
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe.
Maybe we just include something in there, in the regulations, if we're getting rid of the basement, that, you know, there has to be
Proper screening.
proper screening and all that.
Okay, we
If it's in
don't,
there, great, I'm not sure, I'm just,
okay. We don't currently require that for propane tanks. So is that,
No.
so are we going to differentiate between the
well,
two, or do you want?
when propane leaks, it goes up. When oil leaks, it goes down.
But you're talking about screening, right? Like a fence around it or something? Plantings?
You're thinking of containment.
I'm thinking of containment.
Oh, containment. Well, that's going to be required by building. And probably DEEP. So you're not looking at screening then? Screening of the oil
I'm
tank?
not really concerned with how it looks, I'm concerned with how it works, the EPA part of it, and
Yeah, I believe that's already required inside or outside. I mean, I've got an oil tank inside and it's double holed and got containment area.
And again, it kind of sounds like something that's a little bit more of a building code jurisdiction. It doesn't necessarily sound as much of a zoning issue.
okay.
But I can see your point about screening it too.
Oh, it makes sense, yeah. Okay, anything else on this? All right,
No, I appreciate your time and comments on this. I'm sorry, I appreciate your time and comments on this, and we will move forward accordingly and see what we can do.
okay. Next item is other business. I don't think we have any. Item 14, Commissioners' Correspondence. Anyone have any correspondence?
Oh, I just wanted to share a piece of news I saw last week. It just happened, I think, like 5 days ago. Maybe Lori was going to say it. The Connecticut Municipal Development Authority, CMDA, relatively new organization, they issued their first, or they approved their first loan for the North River Street development. So the first in the state is the North River Street development that was approved a couple, last year, I think, or so.
Yep.
So kind of making history. It got
Great.
Enfield in the headlines a little bit.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, Director of Planning, oh, sorry, Rob?
Last meeting, we talked about the Brainerd Road development with 2 signs, and we told them that he couldn't have 2 signs. I drove by Crossroads Apartments, and they have 2 entrances, 2 signs.
That was his point, that it's been done elsewhere, but it's not in the regulations. So how things get done, if I'm not familiar with them firsthand, I don't know how they got there without researching it. But, you know, sometimes they just get done, but in our regulations, it is explicitly not permitted.
Well,
Now,
we could
it's something that
enforce
we could try to
enforce
change.
that, though, right? We could enforce that and make them take one of them down, right?
If you would like us to do that.
I mean,
Well, I don't know. I'm just saying, we could.
my personal opinion is there's 2 entrances, they're 2 clear, defined entrances, there should be signs.
I personally agree with that, but the regulations say what they do. If you'd like us to do a text amendment to change that, we could add it to the list.
What does everybody think?
I think we should consider that.
So basically, a sign could be permitted at each entrance of a
Yeah.
development.
Yeah, I think sounds like we have a consensus on that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Post Office Road, across from JFK.
I think it's fair as well, but we have to enforce the regulations as they're written.
Would you have two? I don't know.
The one on Shaker Road. I think they have two also.
Oh, we'll make them compliant then. Again, I'd have to go back and research whether or not we actually issued a permit for 2 signs or 1 sign, or they just got put up and we didn't know about it. I don't know. So, but it seems logical to have a sign at every entrance to a development.
Okay. so
They're
we can-
small as it
We can
is.
consider that then, right? Okay.
Will do.
All right, anyone else? Director of Planning report?
Tomorrow night is Connecticut Federation of Planning and Zoning Agency meeting. Thank you. Turn the mic on. Tomorrow night is Connecticut Federation of Planning and Zoning Agencies meeting, and a number of you are going, which is nice. We'll report back to those that could not attend. Our new person is starting April 6th. We're getting by without Georgie, but it's getting harder and harder. And there's really not much else, nothing real new. We're just busy, as usual.
Just a quick question. Are you going to bring your new guy to our April 9th meeting
Perhaps.
so that we can scare him to death? I don't know. No, we'll be nice.
I will see what his evening schedule is, because I don't know. Because I do know that he was working at another job that he was going to try to keep, but it was going to be probably on weekends, but I don't know.
Okay.
So,
Just being
Okay.
nosy.
Okay.
yeah, that's about it.
Okay, authorization for administrative approvals, I don't think we have any.
Nothing.
Applications to be received,
We have 2 this evening. PH 3147 at 100 Bright Meadow Boulevard. Application to subdivide subject properties into 8 lots. 100 Bright Meadow Associates LLC. Applicant owner, map 35, lot 44, STD zone. And another one, SPR 1964, also a number 100, but 100 Print Shop Road. Application to modify a previously approved warehouse distribution facility. Adam Wynn Stanley, PPFWE, 100 Print Shop Road, LLC, map 99, lot 15, I-1 zone. And that is it. And I will say that they both appear to be substantially complete.
okay, good. Go ahead.
Laura, just can you clarify? So for the subdivision, is that because it's in the SDD, or because I didn't think we got all subdivisions? So is that in particular for the
So
SDD?
they have the STD, they're subdividing for economic reasons only.
But I'm saying, does that come to us normally? Because we don't usually get. I mean, I don't know how
I'm
frequent.
sorry, does it what?
How frequent do lot subdivisions come to us?
Always,
They all come to the commission.
always.
Okay.
Yeah,
You-
we just
even-
don't have a lot of
Okay,
subdivisions.
that's that's kind of what I was getting. Okay.
Kirsty's like, you haven't been on long enough.
Yeah, I mean, in
been
4
in the
years,
80s.
in 4
Should have
years, yeah,
been here
not a
for
lot.
them all when they subdivided. Oh, moly.
Did it for Peerless Way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So,
Okay.
that's it.
Opportunities, unresolved issues. Executive session, none. Adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Question for